The golden chandeliers sparkled above, casting a warm glow over the grand lobby of the Celestial Royale, an exclusive 8-star hotel in New York. Every inch of the place radiated extravagance, from the marble floors to the gold-accented reception desk. As Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock stepped inside, they drew a few curious glances. Sandra, dressed simply in a black hoodie and cap, looked slightly out of place amidst the glamorous guests in designer suits and evening gowns. Keanu, in his classic black tuxedo, remained calm and composed as they approached the front desk. Behind the counter stood Madeline Sterling, the hotel's head receptionist, an elegant woman with icy blue eyes and a perfect blonde bun. Her sharp gaze swept over Sandra's attire, and a look of disdain crossed her face. "Good evening, sir," Madeline greeted Keanu with a practiced smile before turning her eyes to Sandra. The warmth in her voice vanished. "I'm afraid we have a strict dress code here at the Celestial Royale. We cannot accommodate street attire." Sandra's eyes widened in disbelief. "Excuse me?" Madeline let out a cold chuckle. "This hotel is for elite guests, miss. Perhaps you'd feel more comfortable somewhere less prestigious." The room fell silent. Other guests turned their heads, watching the scene unfold. Keanu's jaw tightened. His normally gentle eyes darkened as he stepped forward, his voice low but firm. "Are you suggesting that my friend is not worthy of staying here?" Madeline hesitated. "Sir, we simply maintain a certain standard." "Let me tell you about standards," Keanu interrupted, his voice calm yet commanding. He placed his hand gently on Sandra's shoulder. "A real luxury hotel treats every guest with respect, regardless of how they dress." "You just insulted one of the most talented actresses in Hollywood." Gasps rippled through the lobby. A couple of hotel executives, now aware of the situation, hurried toward the desk, their faces pale with panic. "And Mr. Reeves, Miss Bullock," one of them stammered. "We deeply apologize for this misunderstanding. Of course, you are more than welcome here. Please, allow us to upgrade you to the presidential suite free of charge." Keanu turned to Sandra, who smiled knowingly. Then he looked back at Madeline and said in a calm but devastatingly serious tone, "Respect is worth more than gold-covered walls. And today, your hotel just lost it." Without another word, Keanu and Sandra turned around and walked out. The Celestial Royale had never experienced a bigger scandal. And as for Madeline, she learned a lesson that day: true luxury isn't just about wealth, but about dignity and respect. As Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock stepped out of the Celestial Royale, a hush fell over the luxurious hotel lobby. Guests whispered, and the hotel executives exchanged worried glances. The news of the incident spread like wildfire, with some patrons pulling out their phones to record the aftermath. Madeline Sterling, the receptionist who had humiliated Sandra, felt her confidence waver for the first time. She had thought she was upholding the hotel's exclusivity, but now she was left standing there, her face burning with embarrassment. Just as Keanu and Sandra reached the entrance, a well-dressed older man in a perfectly tailored suit rushed toward them. His name was Richard Langford, the billionaire owner of the Celestial Royale. "Mr. Reeves, Miss Bullock," he called out, slightly out of breath. "Please, I insist you stay. This was a terrible mistake, and I assure you it does not reflect our hotel's values." Keanu turned around slowly, his expression unreadable. Sandra crossed her arms, waiting for the man to explain himself. "A mistake?" Keanu repeated. His voice was calm but sharp. "Your employee judged my friend based on her clothes. Do you think that's acceptable for an 8-star hotel?" Richard looked genuinely troubled. "No, of course not. We pride ourselves on hospitality. I will personally see to it that this never happens again." He turned to Madeline, who now looked pale and nervous. "Miss Sterling," Richard said sternly, "what do you have to say for yourself?" Madeline opened her mouth, then closed it. Finally, she lowered her gaze. I didn't realize who she was," she admitted softly. Sandra let out a dry chuckle. "So, if I weren't famous, you still would have treated me like garbage?" Madeline flinched. The weight of her mistake settled on her shoulders. "That's the problem," Keanu said, his tone softer now, but still firm. "A luxury hotel isn't defined by its chandeliers or gold decor. It's defined by the way it treats people with respect, no matter who they are." The entire lobby watched in silence. Some guests even nodded in agreement. Richard let out a sigh. "Miss Sterling, you are hereby suspended until further notice. And I expect you to complete intensive hospitality training before you return, if you return at all." Madeline's face fell, but she nodded. She knew she had brought this upon herself. Richard turned back to Keanu and Sandra, giving them a sincere look. I hope you will reconsider staying. As an apology, I'd like to offer you a week in our most exclusive suite, completely on the house. Keanu and Sandra exchanged glances. Then, Sandra grinned. Only if everyone, no matter how they dress, gets treated the same way we do. Richard smiled. That, Miss Bullock, is a promise. With that, Keanu and Sandra agreed to stay. But more than a free luxury suite, they had earned something far greater that day, a change in the hotel's culture. And as Madeline watched them walk away, she silently vowed to be a better person. That evening, Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock settled into the Celestial Royale's most luxurious suite, an extravagant space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking New York, a private gold-trimmed jacuzzi, and a dining table set for royalty. Yet, despite the grandeur, their conversation kept returning to the same topic, Madeline Sterling. Do you think she really learned her lesson? Sandra asked, sipping a glass of wine. Keanu leaned back on the velvet couch, deep in thought. Maybe, but some people don't change until they experience what it feels like to be on the other side. Sandra smirked. Sounds like you have a plan. Keanu simply smiled. As the sun rose over Manhattan, Madeline Sterling hesitated before entering the hotel lobby. After being suspended in front of Keanu Reeves, Sandra Bullock, and a crowd of elite guests, she had spent the night replaying the humiliating moment in her head. When she finally stepped inside, she noticed whispers and stares from her colleagues. Some looked smug, others pitied her. She knew she had ruined her reputation in a single night. Then, her manager approached. Mr. Langford wants to see you. Madeline swallowed hard. Was she about to be fired? Inside Richard Langford's grand office, the billionaire hotel owner sat at his polished mahogany desk, looking at Madeline with an unreadable expression. Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock stood beside him. Miss Sterling, Richard began, I've been thinking about what happened. Instead of simply dismissing you, I believe a more educational approach is necessary. Madeline blinked. Sir? Keanu stepped forward, his piercing gaze fixed on her. You judged Sandra based on her appearance. So, here's the deal. For the next 3 days, you will swap places with someone on your staff. Instead of working at the front desk, you'll experience life as a regular hotel guest. Madeline's mouth fell open. You want me to pretend to be a guest? Not just any guest. Sandra interjected with a smirk. You'll be given simple clothes, no special treatment, no name tags, and no access to your usual privileges. We want you to see how this hotel truly treats people who don't look the part. Madeline hesitated. 3 days of humiliation? But she knew this was her only chance to redeem herself. She took a deep breath and nodded. All right, she said. I'll do it. Dressed in a plain sweater and jeans, Madeline walked into the hotel lobby not as a respected receptionist, but as an ordinary guest. She approached the front desk where one of her colleagues, Elaine, was working. Welcome to Celestial Royale. How can I assist you? Elaine said, her voice polite but noticeably less enthusiastic than when greeting wealthy-looking guests. I have a reservation, Madeline said hesitantly. Elaine tapped on the computer, then sighed. Ah, you're in one of our standard rooms. Check-in is at p.m. You'll have to wait. Madeline frowned. She knew for a fact that early check-ins were possible, especially for VIPs. Is there any way I could check in earlier? She asked. Elaine barely looked at her. Sorry, we're fully booked. But at that moment, a wealthy-looking man in a designer suit approached the desk. Good morning, sir. Elaine's tone instantly brightened. Checking in? Yes, but I arrived a bit early, the man said casually. Elaine smiled warmly. Not a problem at all. Let me upgrade you to an executive suite for your inconvenience. Madeline felt a pang of guilt. This was exactly what she had done to Sandra. By the second day, Madeline had already faced several small humiliations, being ignored by waitstaff, getting denied access to a priority elevator, and receiving bare minimum service in the hotel restaurant. But the real turning point came when she visited the spa. She had scheduled a simple massage, but when she arrived, the receptionist looked her up and down before saying, I'm sorry, but we're fully booked today. Before Madeline could respond, Sandra Bullock stepped out from the spa area, wearing a bathrobe. Everything all right? Sandra asked with a knowing smile. Madeline hesitated, then sighed. I get it now. Sandra tilted her head. Get what? Madeline looked around at the exclusive guests, the staff who treated them like royalty, and then at herself, just another face in the crowd. Respect should never be based on appearances, Madeline admitted. I was wrong to judge you. And I never realized how different people are treated here based on how they look. Sandra nodded. Lesson learned? Madeline gave a small, humbled smile. Yeah, On the third day, Madeline returned to work, this time with a new mindset. A woman walked into the lobby wearing a simple hoodie and jeans, looking nervous. Before anyone else could react, Madeline stepped forward. "Welcome to Celestial Royale," she said warmly. "How can I assist you today?" The woman smiled in surprise, clearly not expecting such kind treatment. A week later, Celestial Royale announced a new training program for all staff, one that focused not just on luxury, but on true hospitality. Every guest, no matter their appearance, would be treated with the same respect. As for Madeline, she became one of the most respected employees in the hotel, not because of her position, but because of her changed heart. And whenever she saw a guest who looked out of place, she remembered the lesson Keanu and Sandra taught her, that true luxury is not about wealth, but about kindness and respect.